A deal on Dickens, who could resist? A stack of Austen, warmly kissed. Golden Age crime tales twist and turn. Every page a treasure to learn. Books keep coming home with me. Piles so tall, they're all I see. Turn a page and sail the sea. Reading always feels so free.
Okay, hi, my name is Talia. Welcome to Talia Nerds Out. I do have a guest.
I am a guest. I am Marlecia from Marlecia's Meanderings.
And this is a video we've been looking forward to doing for a while. I am going to give a heads up. There will 100% be spoilers.
Yes, we're not going to try.
We're not going to even try not to do spoilers. This is a conversation about Mansfield Park.
Yes.
I will do...
And the idiot who's one of the characters.
Yes. I will do a brief overview of the plot. And some of our history with Austen in general as the two of us. But this is supposed to be like we are just sitting and having tea with y'all. Excuse me, guys. And I'm going to move because somehow Mom's more on camera than I am.
As it should be. As it should be.
Okay, there we go. Part of it is your turtle is being obnoxious here. There's a stuffed turtle behind me. Pigeon.
Her pattern, my...
Yes, and actually she's really comfortable on the back, but she tends to be a bit of a couch hog. Or a couch turtle.
She is only deigning to let you sit on her couch. So don't complain.
Okay. So Pigeon is kindly sharing the couch with me.
So we don't know if we're doing two...
Parts?
Not two podcasts or episodes, mine and yours, or if we're doing just this one and then mine tomorrow or whenever.
Well, I know that the one we're doing for you, since it's on a different topic, I think we're talking about doing it next week. Because I have a feeling this one will go long.
Oh, I'm sure it will.
And then that will allow us to probably use an extra day next week if we need to. Because we usually have to have the equipment set up anyway for the, podcast and stuff. Okay, but anywho. So, talking about Mansfield Park. First of all, I want to talk about what tea we have.
I want to show my book.
Okay, well, let's show.
It's part of a set.
Yes, it is part of a set. What tea are you having?
I have English breakfast because it's threatening storm and rain, and I feel cranky. And
it's Austen.
And I want, yes, Austen.
And also we have English royalty coming here tomorrow.
Yes, we are in little tiny Virginia town, and King Charles and Queen Camilla are coming to our town. Not around, they're coming to our center of town.
They're blocking
tomorrow.
Things off.
I couldn't.
What a day to talk about English literature, right, y'all?
Yeah, I was almost late for mass this morning.
Because one of her initiatives was stuff about. I remember her doing something about Roald Dahl and the books and all that, like a protecting of the books.
I thought that was Catherine.
Catherine does children's education and stuff. She's really into the developmental education and all that kind of stuff.
That sounds right, yeah.
Which you see around kids is 100% like, oh, okay, of course that's her thing. But anyway, so we are in a very English type. We got rain, and hopefully the weather will be nice for them tomorrow. But
that is thunderstorm. There's little heart's content today, so it'll be clear tomorrow.
Because they want to see our national park.
Yeah.
So I mean, I kind of want them to see it in its best light.
Well, if it rains all day, it'll be really pretty tomorrow.
Oh, that'd be so nice. So I have in here now. I didn't think about grabbing English.
I didn't think about it. I just did it because this is my comfort tea among others, and I wanted it.
I couldn't just decide what I wanted, so I went with chocolate chip tea. And we both have house mouse. Actually, you have a Gruffy.
But still from same people.
Yeah. And I have a scrapbooking house mouse mug. So
my owl one is up there.
And let me
house mice.
Pull my knitting up here, and we'll get to discussing. So
I was going to start the baby sweater, but I kept falling asleep.
Well, that's a problem for, getting something started. I already had this going, so I'm just grabbing something that's very simple to knit. Not to mention, it's unisex, and my friend who's having a baby, we're too early to know what it'll be. So if I have a couple of unisex things ready.
I don't see them trying to find out either. So.
No, so I can't remember if they did for their first
I
one,
don't
to
think
be quite honest with
I don't
you.
think they did.
But we, like we said, we're talking about Mansfield Park. If people probably who have been with either with my channel for a while or even with Mom's channel since it started, might remember that we have a history with Austen for us. I have been begging Mom for years to read Austen, and for years she has not been interested. She pushed it aside as being a romance, which is kind of funny because you actually like romances.
No. No, I don't.
Well,
I did when I was younger, but
and also, I mean, Anne is as much as a romance as anything else.
I don't consider Anne a romance. I don't consider Anne of Green Gables a romance. It's a slice of life, coming of age. It's not a romance. That is not the focal point of that book, the romance.
Yeah, I can agree to that. And also, and I had to get Mom to come around to the idea that, yes, romance is a huge part of these books, but it's more of a social commentary than it is anything else. It's not fluff by any means.
Emma was the issue.
Yes, and Emma actually,
And we have
even
to
more,
look at next.
I think all the other stuff around was like padding to try to push it as far away from you as possible, because she saw one of the BBC versions of Emma, not the one I saw, which is the best one, of course.
Well, it don't matter, but
It made her want to read the book, and Emma's a hard book to start with. It would be the last book I would suggest people to start Austen with, and that's the one she tried to start. And so she got a small taste of it, decided she didn't like Austen, and never finished Emma or starting the other ones. I made a deal and forced myself to read more of the Anne of Green Gables books than I wanted to, because I only liked the first one.
But you still didn't read all of them. I'm reading all of these. And
Now, to be fair, I'm reading this with you, which is a bit different than the.
Well, I'm still reading all of them.
Yeah. But she read first. We started her with Northanger Abbey. We decided to go in order, and that was a good one to start with.
Nothing Arab is good.
Catherine's cute.
She is. She's so sweet.
Innocent. Yes, but this is the first. Mansfield Park is the first one we read together. Mom and I would discuss the other ones together, and actually, you sometimes forget which one that we haven't read any other ones together, because once I knew where you would be in a book, we could discuss it really well, because I know the books well. Sorry, guys. But what we decided to this time is I think it was at the time we decided that we were going to start reading together that we decided we would start doing it with the Austen. I think Austen might have been the start of that.
No, I don't think so. I think there was another book, but I don't remember what it was. It might have been a religion book.
I think we chose a religion book and we chose an Austen book at the same time.
Might have been.
And then Austen went on pause, I think, for Poirot, because we had her for Carla's Christmas. But we've been reading this about a year, I think, when I looked at it, and
because we only read it together once a week.
Once a week, yeah. And we read it aloud. We read about a chapter at a time. If it's a really short section, we might read 2 chapters if we're really excited. So this is my main copy of it, and it's a box set.
And I can't read that print. Well, that's not too bad.
You're thinking the Anne of Green Gables set.
Why didn't I get that set?
This set, because I think this was, no, I don't know why you didn't get this set. Maybe you wanted, there's something about the text, maybe this said something about the text being particularly big. Because we let you choose your book.
Yeah, well, I think you got it for Christmas, but I did get to choose.
Yeah, you did get to choose, because I think you were concerned about the text being big enough for you.
I don't think you had it yet.
No, I've had this.
When you got me this, so I don't think you had it.
No, I'm pretty sure I did.
And I would have looked at it, would have said fine.
Yeah, I don't know why you didn't okay it, but you are.
This has a really nice feel in the hand.
This does too.
This has a nice feel in the hand.
Well, that works it. And then also I have here, and we ended up using this more than I even thought we would, the annotated Mansfield Park, which if we had a question about culture or
a word
or something like this ended up being helpful. We didn't, read the story directly from it, because one side will have like random fact kind of things or a picture or something, and then the other side will be the actual story. So it would be it would feel like it's taking a lot longer if you were to read it this way.
Right.
So
it would take longer.
Well, I mean, if you weren't,
If you read this and that
yeah,
together.
I mean, technically we were doing that.
But we weren't reading the whole thing.
No, I would scan through. But, so that's kind of the background for it. We were reading it once a week. And so if you've never read Mansfield Park, the basic idea is that you're introduced to three sisters at the very beginning. One sister, who I believe is the eldest, I think Lady Bertram is the eldest.
I think you're right, yeah.
She marries Sir Henry Bertram. It's Henry, right?
Yes, and she marries well.
She marries well. It bothers me that I just Sir Thomas. I don't know why I said Henry.
Probably
Sir Thomas.
There is a Henry involved.
Yes, there is. That's that is Mary's brother.
Oh yes.
I
don't like him.
I don't know why my brain is like losing character names all of a sudden, because we want to discuss it, I guess. So anyway, the eldest sister marries Sir Thomas Bertram. The second sister isn't able to marry as well, but she does marry a friend of Sir Thomas's, who is also the clergyman who has the a parsonage just right next door.
I have my feelings about that woman and that poor man.
Then you have the last sister who marries to marries to the to disfortune of her family.
Misfortune. She marries below her state.
Yes, she does. But she marries someone for love. It's not a great match. And it ends up being in both ways not really a great match. So you have these three sisters, and the story really revolves around their choices in the next generation afterwards. The middle sister is
piece of work.
A very difficult character. I think there's a very good reason that J.K. Rowling called the spying cat that would tattle on the kids to essentially, I call him the warden, but he's actually like the guy who cleans the school. For Harry Potter, that cat's name Mrs. Norris. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh yeah, that's why you chose that name. Mm-hmm. Because Mrs. Norris would absolutely 100% tattle on people.
She's awful. I just can't deal with her. She's just, there's plenty of unlikable characters in this book, but there are enough likable ones to balance it out.
And Mrs. Norris is,
I think she's the worst one of all of them, almost.
Well, because she hides this. She wants to be seen as useful and important, and she's actually the one who really sets off the plot. Mm-hmm. Past everyone getting married and stuff. She's the one who gets your heroine, Fanny Price, at Mansfield Park under the pretense of being, charitable to their younger sister, their youngest sister who needs help, who has yet another baby, large family, not really able to afford them. She talks the Bertrams into taking in one of the children, and the mother sends them her oldest daughter.
Which is unusual in and of itself.
Yeah, they were kind of surprised they didn't get sent a boy, but, okay. And the Bertrams initially thought that Mrs. Norris was going to want the girl as a companion for herself, but found out that that was not going to be the case. But they continued to decide to take care of the girl, raise her, educate her.
Well, Mrs. Norris is the idea person. Mm-hmm. She doesn't get her hands dirty.
And she spends the Bertrams' money for them with her good ideas.
And tries to make them do her will.
And then tries to take credit for what they've done that's good. But, so that's your setup. Their thought process was, and they didn't mean poorly by it, at least not the Bertrams. When they came in, they didn't want her to be necessarily on the same level as their children, because socially there was a difference.
They had 4 children, two boys,
two girls. And there was a little fear initially of there being a romance between cousins. But they, wanted to make enough of a distinction without making his daughters think too highly of themselves and think too lowly of their cousin. Mm-hmm. It was a balancing act that unfortunately did not take. Mm-hmm. with all the well-meaning of the parents and lack of well-meaning of Mrs. Norris, who probably did the most harm in creating that situation.
She did a lot of damage to the younger generation.
So you have, and once we have the names of the other characters, we'll be able to go forward. You have the 4, Bertram kids, and you have Fanny. Fanny is the youngest. You have Tom Bertram, who is the eldest son. And then a year or 2 younger than him is, of course, Edmund. I had to sit there because I'm like, not Edward. Edward's is Sense and Sensibility. Edmund.
She likes her Eds.
Yes. Then you have Maria, and you have Julia. And then, of course, there's Fanny, who's the cousin. Now, Tom is, profligate heir, ends up spending more money than he really should, and the father has to sell the living that should have been his brother's, who's supposed to be, once he is in orders.
Yeah, let's just say facts. He is rather dissipate in the way he lived.
Yes, and so...
I'm not saying he was going off with loose women or anything, but he was, you know.
Sir Thomas, basically is trying to make him feel bad for it because he, but Tom feels bad for like 5 seconds and then shrugs it off and continues on with his ways. But it is this situation that brings in your other big players. Now, you have one of the sweeter characters in the book who is the wife of the new clergyman, which I actually really like her. Yes, Mrs. Grant. Dr. Grant is the clergyman. And then you have coming with them her half-sister Mary and her brother Henry. And their last name is Crawford.
Mary's brother.
Mary's brother, Henry.
Full brother.
Full brother. Half brother to Mrs. Grant. So now you have all your players. So for you, upon coming, I knew that right away that this was going to be the book that Mom was going to really enjoy. I knew that Mom would enjoy Fanny. I knew if anyone would be willing to... I knew that you would probably see and be able to have a more nuanced view of some characters I think that could judge rather harshly. Particularly, I feel like Sir Thomas gets judged more harshly than he deserves a lot of times. And I think Edmund. He's going to kill me.
Edmund was fine until we hit certain chapters, and then I was ready to throw him out the window.
But I don't feel like a lot of times some of the things he gets accused of not being worthy of Fanny or even of weakness and things like that. I think it's just youthful infatuation.
He was stupid. That's all there was to it. I mean that not in the harsh way that most people say that. I mean it in an exasperated, affectionate, kind of what are you thinking kind of way. He was stupid. It was just, he was young.
And so, I mean...
And I say it because I like him so much.
So I knew that if anyone would be able to... I was convinced that you would be able to see the nuance in these characters and be able to appreciate them in a way that I don't always think they get appreciated as they should. I think that also sometimes Mary Crawford, even though she is definitely a character that deserves...
She bounces up and down in my estimation.
Well, it's like...
She's a very human character.
She's a very human character. You can see how her... And this is where we're definitely going into spoiler areas because, I mean, with a book that's as old as this one, you really have to be able to just assume that people know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And if you don't, well, now you have a taste of it and you can go read it.
Yeah. I am somewhat of Edmund's opinion that her upbringing did ruin her, and that what she was exposed to, if she had been given a better idea of right and wrong earlier, temperamentally, she could have been quite different.
More so than her brother, perhaps, but I am also of opinion that once you get old enough to see things, you have a brain in your head.
Yeah.
Okay. And you can do and make, I mean, obviously other characters are brought up in certain situations and they still became good, or they're brought up in good situations they weren't so good.
Yeah.
So I think that, yes, she had the bones for it. She could have done better. She was making progress. But I'm less inclined to be as generous.
Well,
as Edmund
Edmund's
was.
more generous than Edmund gives more than she deserves, but Fanny a lot of times gives less than she deserves. And a lot of I
Well,
felt,
there's a reason for both of those.
and there's a reason for both of those. And sometimes I feel like commentators can be very rough on her.
And that's why I'm actually judging based on commentators and stuff, not on necessarily.
Not necessarily the characters. The characters, they make sense within the context of what they're dealing with. I might argue with them because I see where their bias is blinding them, but I take more issue with some of the commentators where I think they might be missing something. Maybe they're not taking in cultural context. Maybe they aren't looking at the character enough of a nuanced way. And I think you can look at a character in a nuanced way and not excuse their actions.
Right.
Because that's where you come into with Henry Crawford. Because Henry is absolutely deplorable.
He is.
But there's been points where even Fanny is like, she saw something that was beginning to change. Now, I think that, unfortunately...
I think he's playing a game, honestly.
I think part of him wasn't completely sure.
I think he was playing a game. He couldn't stand the idea that there was a female out there who had no intention of falling at his feet. And
I think he convinced himself he was in love for a little bit.
No, he was delusional.
Because he...
How he could do that when she keeps telling him no in no uncertain terms, sometimes quite unflattering, is beyond me.
Well, remember the Mr. Collins proposal where he's like, well, I know that fashionable ladies will sometimes refuse.
Fanny would never consider herself a fashionable lady.
But it to be in the, what women do. So at a certain point, because Lizzie never considered herself a fashionable lady either. But
she didn't do it for that reason. She didn't say yes to me, no, or whatever it was.
Well, no, of course not. But the point is more that the guy there was a precedent where culturally there might have been some women who would have refused just to encourage a second proposal, which really seems counterintuitive.
Well, there was one character that said, it wasn't in this book though, that the character gave up too quickly. I forget who it was.
Oh, I vaguely, yeah. But yeah, so to go back to Mansfield Park, I think the first big emotion that you experienced was what I expected, was the Mrs. Norris. And actually, let's be a little bit more organized with this, because there's a lot to cover, and we can kind of just bob around, not really say much of anything if we aren't careful. Let's just break this down into ideas. So first, the comparison of the sisters. So you have the three sisters. You have Lady Bertram, you have Mrs. Norris, and then you have Mrs. Price. Now, you picked up on some things that I didn't necessarily, partially because, you can't help but notice the difference between the Price home and the Bertram home when Fanny is sent away from Mansfield Park to try to get her to appreciate what she had and maybe reconsider Crawford's proposal. But, so in comparing this, the obvious comparison, of course, is, well, no one likes Mrs. Norris.
She's a piece of work.
But you had a much stronger reaction even to Mrs. Price, to the point where you almost were saying, actually, I think you did say at one point that Mrs. Price, to a certain extent, was worse.
She was, because Mrs. Norris made no bones about the fact that she didn't like Fanny. But the dislike, she actually directed her dislike to her. She belittled her, and that's horrible. Her mother ignored her. It was like she was a non-entity. It was...
Whether she was present or not.
Yeah, she never wrote to her all the time she was at Mansfield. And when she came back, it was just like business as usual, and she would go back to her favored child. And it was just, the idea of someone, both her and her husband, the way they treated Fanny as if she was not even a servant.
And actually they treated their other daughter, the next oldest daughter, the very Susan next way. Same way.
I was trying not to bring her in, but yeah. Susan, Susan will figure more largely later, but it seems like there were a couple, 3 children that got some good genes somewhere along the line, and the others are just horrible. And you see in the parents, I mean, the father is kind of indolent. He drinks and he
has some sort of injury that kept him from going back to work.
he's still kind of indolent. I
Oh,
mean,
he absolutely is.
he drinks more than he should, and the boys of course want to go into the Navy or whatever that is.
All of them have been going Navy.
Yeah.
Or I think they have one who I think they said was working
some kind of
business type,
like something with books or something.
Yeah, something like that. I can't remember. One of the older boys.
Yeah,
that you never see.
Yeah, you never see. It seemed like he had a decent living. We don't know what his character was because he never makes an appearance.
Yeah.
But it just seemed like the household was, untidy and chaotic. And I don't mean like untidy and chaotic, like you might say, "Don't come to my house. It's a mess."
Or it's chaotic.
I mean, it was that too.
Yeah, but there wasn't like the chaos of a happy.
It wasn't like, oh, they're it's a lived in and the kids are tumbling all over the floor playing and they're laughing and they're there's someone in the kitchen cooking and there's dishes all over because you're cooking or whatever. No, it was dirty and it was chaotic and it was no respect for persons. It was just a thoroughly disagreeable place to be.
Definite favoritism. If you weren't one of the boys or the youngest daughter, you kind of just got ignored.
And you can see the writing on the wall, especially for the youngest daughter, that she was going to be horrible.
Yeah.
How Susan and how Fanny actually maintained their personalities the way they did, and William, who's the brother, I think that's the one you left out was William.
Yes.
The brother who is the other of the three people that kind of just somehow maintain their.
Are the ones that we see.
Yeah, that we see. Their civility and their humility and humanity and all that kind of stuff. And they're not like grasping. The others are just absolutely horrid. And
other than, to be quite fair, for the boys, I don't have much to say because a lot of what you saw for them was spirit. And then you didn't see a whole lot of them unless they were just, being boys around the house. I didn't have a whole lot of issue with the boys. A lot of the issues that you see is with the girls insofar as how the mother... And, of course, the father.
Well, there's only one girl other than Fanny and Susan.
I guess what I mean by the girls is you have the mother and the youngest daughter, and then you have the dealing with the servants. Mm-hmm. And so that is your little nexus of unrest in that household. Yes, you have the noise of the boys, but that noise of the boys could have potentially been a lot less if you didn't have the simmering discontent.
It's more than simmering.
No, you're right. It's more than simmering. Yeah. If you didn't have the outward discontent of so many of the other family members, if you didn't have the father yelling and swearing all the time at them. Now, Austen, a true lady, of course, doesn't show the swearing. She gives you enough of a flavor with a first letter and some spaces for you to know there was swearing, but, she's had a couple of brothers in the Navy. She knew well that there was going to be swearing, but she's a lady. She's not going to write that. So, yes, it's the interesting idea of having this neglect, and your mind. Yeah, Fanny felt more, even than when Mrs. Norris would, do Mrs. Norrisy type things. She felt more the neglect of the mother because, for one thing, she expected more.
And when she came back for that visit, she had built it all up in her head. So when it came down crashing around her ears, because she'd been gone for 4 years or 3 years or something like that.
I think we had said, it had been over 6 because
that's right.
She moved, she was 10 and she was, I think actually she was 18, I think, when she goes back.
Okay, so it's been a while.
Yeah.
And she hadn't had one letter and she built up all this stuff about her mother and it just never materialized. And she was very, very hurt by it. And as the time goes on, she's getting more and more despondent. And she's not a very strong character physically and things like that. They're constantly kind of, Edmund especially is kind of constantly be careful about her health. Even Mary is to some extent. And so, but if you look at the households, the only one that's happy is the Bertrams.
Yeah.
I think this is what I was going to say earlier. I think Mrs. Norris drove her husband to an early grave.
Oh, and actually they imply as much.
Yeah, I'm not saying she killed him.
No, but he was the implication is that he was so miserable that he needed to escape her. It's implied in the text.
That she just, she was a controlling,
Well,
conniving
she
woman.
couldn't stand that Mrs. Grant would have a bigger table, have more largesse. Like, she was counting, she's doing what's called pocket watching. Like, thinking about, okay, how much does she have in her pocket? How much is she spending of that? She was more jealous of Mrs. Grant's money and what she did with the money that...
Well, Mrs. Norris was a miser.
Yeah.
She had all these ideas as long as somebody else took care of them. And whenever anybody else, like Sir Thomas suggested or hinted that, or outright said it even, she was like always finding a reason that she couldn't
to do something herself. But for Mrs. Grant in particular really bothered her because I think a part of her realized that Mrs. Grant made her look bad. Because
she made herself look
Oh,
bad.
absolutely. But I think that part of her recognized that Mrs. Grant was better at the job of being the pastor's wife than being that in the community as well.
Well, she always looked down on people. I mean, the thing about the kid with the gate.
Oh, yeah.
And the sheep or whatever it was.
So what it was is they were doing the stuff for the play. And there was some extra material. And the kid was, the father did whatever work he needed to do. And the kid was going to take the extra material home. And she took it away from him. She made him feel really bad about it. And also made sure that he didn't get like maybe extra food that he wouldn't have normally got if he had him to happen to be right there. I'm not sure if it was like worker food. I can't remember what it was exactly. But basically, she was bragging about it the entire day. Like how she like managed to catch this little boy and essentially made him cry.
And nobody else thought that was a mark in her favor.
No.
I mean, it just showed her meanness of spirit. She really was a very, very unlikable character who thought, it reminds me of Scrooge in some ways, I have a possession of a most generous spirit.
Well, it's interesting. It just occurred to me. You were talking about, so this went along the whole idea of like she thinks about what other people are doing and, how it reflects on her. Or somehow it affects her, like the idea of Fanny being able to walk, to have not be walking in the rain, having a carriage call for her really bugs her. Now she hates Fanny, but
for whatever reason, we don't know why.
I think it's something to do with the sister. I think it's whatever reason. But her sister, actually, surprisingly, not Lady Bertram, but the other sister, Mrs. Price, shows a very similar thing, and it just occurred to me, the fact that one of her servants was going to church with it was either a feather or a flower in her hat. And it ruined a part of the morning for her because the servant had this extra little embellishment in her hat. And it's like, why does that bother you? Because, it doesn't affect you. And that's a little bit of the Mrs. Norris type spitefulness.
And she can't see anybody else happy if she didn't have something materially to do with it. She had to be able to crow over it.
Well, also, so I think it has something to do with status as well. Because it has something to do with the person who is either you see as your equal so they make it look better than you, or you see as lesser than you, or better. So if they're better than you, you want to be in their good graces and do everything you can to kind of ingratiate yourself. If they're at the same level, you might be trying to... That's where Mrs. Grant comes in, where she doesn't like her, and you will complain about her and talk down about her because she doesn't like the fact that Mrs. Grant is better at the whole minister's wife thing than she was. But for both Mrs. Price and for Mrs. Norris, you have the idea of if someone you see is beneath you has something you don't feel like they should have, that really bothers you. So
even something as innocent and innocuous and as free, by the way, as a flower.
Right, as that little the flower, feather, whatever the servant had in her hat that bothered Mrs. Price so much. That's a small microcosm, I think, of the Mrs. Norris attitude towards Fanny. She sees Fanny as beneath her because they pulled Fanny out of this situation where her parents were poor and couldn't take care of the whole family. So she became a charity case. And because she was the poor family member, she was lesser than. And so essentially Mrs. Norris felt like she could bully her.
Mrs. Norris is one of those types of people I can't understand. Why it makes them feel better and bigger to make someone in a lesser circumstance or anybody hurt or demean them, or I don't understand how. I mean,
she's unhappy, and she thinks it elevates her to bring someone else down.
I guess, but
because I can't imagine she's happy.
Oh, I doubt it. She will never be happy because she's always looking at what other people have and never counting her own blessings.
Mm-hmm. She's either looking at what other people have and, being mad that they have it and she doesn't, or she's looking at what other people have and being like, I'm better than you. Or she's trying to connive to get something, like she does when she tries to make friends with the housekeeper at Maria's fiance's house in order to then get stuff off of her.
So that's the thing. I mean, you look at Fanny and even Lady Bertram, and they're both happy, as long as she's not being tormented, Fanny.
Yeah.
But they're both happy because Fanny is constantly grateful for everything. Mm-hmm. Everything from the littlest thing, like a fire. Mrs. Norris wouldn't let, get this, Mrs. Norris would not let her brother-in-law put a fire in Fanny's special room. It's not her house.
Well, she tried to not let.
Well, it was for a while.
Well, he didn't know about it.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, because once he knew about it, there was no not letting him.
No. I mean, he's not a cruel man. He just didn't know. And so, but what was I saying? I was going over there somewhere like that.
Something about the
the cruelty. Fanny would be, first of all, she was just happy to have a little space to herself. Mm-hmm. And then, and so she always was looking at the things that were given to her, the positive things, whereas some of the others, like Mrs. Norris, was always grasping and always never happy and content because they could never see what they had that was good, that people did for them, or that they was falling into their lap or whatever. Mrs. Bertram was a little oblivious, but she was happy.
Yeah, I mean, she was a bit like a spoiled child.
Yeah, well, she was definitely that, but she appreciated.
Oh, absolutely.
She did appreciate Fanny.
And
later on, the other person that comes into her life, she's capable of appreciating, and she's capable of feeling when someone of her blood is ill or whatever.
Once it finally sinks,
it has to get in there. And that's
partially because of her self-absorption, partially because everyone protects her.
Everybody. I mean, she's like a little princess in an ivory tower, but not in the spoiled way. It's not like she throws tantrums and things. She really doesn't.
She's spoiled. I've heard it described as spoiled sweet.
Yes.
Versus spoiled rotten. Where she's spoiled, but she's not like an awful person about it.
People don't mind doing it for her.
No.
They don't mind doing it for her.
And
she'll never do something for you because she doesn't think of it. Not because if she thought of it, she would. But she just doesn't.
I'm thinking that one time it actually occurred to her to send up her lady's maid to take care of Fanny's hair for Fanny's dance. Now she was too late, but
didn't matter.
Didn't matter. She thought of it, and the whole night she was marveling at her own thoughtfulness.
And that kind of says it in a nutshell. But there's no maliciousness in it.
No, there's no
none. And I like Lady Bertram. I do. She's the only one of the three sisters that I like.
Because Fanny kept comparing her mother to Lady Bertram, and sometimes it'd be like, she wondered what, or actually she compared all three sisters, like wondered what they would be like in similar situations. Now, she thought that perhaps that Mrs. Norris would have handled Mrs. Price's situation better. Mm-hmm. Because
it never would have gotten to that point.
No, she would have never let it get to that point. But
even if the poor man died early death to keep him in some kind of a decency.
Yeah, she wouldn't have let herself be ridden over by, servants that she couldn't keep and, allow themselves to live in this kind of dirty sort of environment. She would have found some way. But I thought that was an interesting and really apt observation on Fanny's part. But the one that I think that she was more mistaken in was trying to compare her mother and Lady Bertram, where I don't think, yes, Lady Bertram would have had difficulty in that situation, and who knows how her personality would have been affected by that. But I think there's also something it's not in Lady Bertram to want to see someone else have something and resent that they have it.
There's no bitterness in her.
Yeah.
She might have, I think hers more likely to be depression or something, maybe, just kind of quietly pining away.
Yeah.
She's not the kind to, to affix blame or anything like that. I mean, no, I don't see that. I mean, I think the main personality would have been intact. It may have manifested slightly differently, but I don't think there would be any bitterness.
And even if there wasn't bitterness, I don't see it coming out in the way of like, I can't stand that you have this little thing of having a feather in your hat, flower hat, whatever it was, and it doesn't impact me. It's not taking it away from my hat.
No, in actuality, she probably would have enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
It's something to brighten up the day. I mean, she's got some of Fanny's stuff. I can see in her the ability to just kind of be grateful for what comes.
Mm-hmm.
She's very what's the word? We use it sometimes in that we think about the personality types for religion. What is it? Phlegmatic.
Oh, you're talking about
the one that's really just kind of...
That's phlegmatic, isn't it? Or sanguine?
I don't forget if it's sanguine or phlegmatic, but anyway, that kind of personality, which is just kind of like, I always see that kind of personality as kind of like a limp something over the back of a chair.
Well, the funny thing is, both she and Sir Thomas have a level of that.
Mm-hmm.
Him not to neither the same extent. I mean, he has to be active and he's in Parliament and things like that. But neither of them are particularly social. And that's part of what the problem has been. And that leads us into Sir Thomas, who is another bone of contention from my scene for commentators. Because I actually think he gets treated too roughly.
Yeah, I think a parent, and I'm a parent, I can say this, that a parent has the right to set the parameters for their children. And if he thought he didn't want them out there for whatever reason, that's his prerogative. Yes, maybe he was a little strict and maybe he needed to loosen up a little bit. But he didn't have to let them do all the different parties or whatever. I think they would have been ruined. I think he did exactly what he thought necessary. Now, if he was only because of his own comfort, then you might have a little bit of issue that you have to deal with.
Well, it was a mixture of his and it was a mixture of the mother's. The mother wasn't wanting to go to London. Yeah,
we did things in our family. When you have family members, okay, I consider her, Lady Bertram, quasi special needs, okay? I have special needs in my home, okay, people in my home. And for years, everything revolved around one, because she required it to be that way. And so everybody else had to give, and that's just the way it is. So if that was the way it was, then that's life, and you just deal with it. Maybe they could have done more in terms of bringing friends into the house. I don't remember if they did parties and stuff.
Well, they don't really emphasize how much their social life was in the country, but I'm sure they had a social life in the country. It just wasn't the London social life. Which, I mean, when you see how Mary Crawford turns out, it's not necessarily like it would have been that much better.
And that's the other thing.
And he also has a very strict moral code.
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing that, people think that you have to do and keep up with the Joneses, and you don't. It's just, you just do what's best for your family, and you do what you think is best for their upbringing. And the other people have nothing to say about it. I think that the commentators who are that tough on Sir Thomas are missing the point.
Because he actually gets, there's a book on the fathers of Jane Austen. He gets rated really poorly, which I always thought was completely unfair and kind of missing the point.
I think that
I think he's one of the better fathers.
I think as far as I'm about, 3/4 of the way through now? We have Emma and Persuasion left?
Yes.
So I guess I'm about 3/4 of the way through maybe of the Austen books. And I think he's one of the better ones.
Because, I mean, I think that sometimes Mr. Bennet gets too much of a pass because he's funny. But he's negligent. He doesn't care enough to put aside for his kid's future.
You can see why his wife is a bit of a busybody and doing something that she's doing.
He married someone that he fell in love with her looks and her spirit, but then once the initial attraction faded, he's still attracted to her, but more after he realized that her personality was such it was going to drive him off the wall, he just he allowed the children to mock her too. He mocked her in front of the children, and he did nothing to try to rein his children in. No one could accuse Sir Thomas of that. Sir Thomas wanted to be active in his kids' lives. Now, he made the mistake of trusting Mrs. Norris's judgment.
Yeah.
And then thinking okay, I can balance out Mrs. Norris's excesses in the girls by just being a little bit more strict.
Yeah,
and he didn't realize quite how bad it was.
Well, Mrs. Norris wasn't just what's the word? Leniency is not the word I was going to look for. License, maybe. It wasn't. It was more. It was an attitude. It was a snobbery. It was a meanness of spirit. It wasn't just, oh, well, you want to do, especially from Maria. Oh, you want to do this? We'll get it done. You know, it's not just that, which is bad enough, going behind the parents' back, but it's.
Well, Mrs. Norris made sure that the girls felt that they were above Fanny. And the thing is that affected them in other ways too. They made them feel like they were just basically above, that they could have what they wanted. And it got to the point that when their father did leave and they had no one to try to rein them in, because their mother isn't that type of personality to rein anyone in. She's kind of just there.
Yeah, poor Edmund tried to do something. And
but he would get overridden a lot.
Because Tom is no help.
And Tom's no help. And Mrs. Norris is actively involved in trying to encourage the worst of their instincts. So you lost Sir Thomas when Sir Thomas was in big business in Antigua. And I know some people hold that against him as well, that, you know, it's plantation business. Maybe you're dealing with the slave trade stuff there. And it's like, okay, yes, I understand that
that's a bad thing. We get that. But that was what they did at that time period. Get over it. Honestly. I'm sorry. I know this is going to be very controversial. You can't put your head in the sand. This happened. This is what they wrote about. That's what the book is about. Move on. And I'd probably get you into trouble for that.
I don't care. I don't care.
But it's a pet peeve of mine.
And actually, there is a point where Fanny brings up slavery. And actually, he was going to encourage the conversation, and then she got a little shy and stopped. Because he was interested in what she had to say.
Sir Thomas?
It was at his return.
Yeah, right after he returned, after the play.
Yeah, that was one of the first times he started noticing her. Like, really noticing her.
And he was quite fond of Fanny.
Oh, he was.
Saw her as a daughter to the point where he was trying to get her to reconsider this proposal because he thought it was good for her.
Yeah, and it wasn't because of cruelty. And that's another. So
there's no cruelty there.
No.
There's no neglect and there's no cruelty.
And they mentioned, like, well, the girls all feared him. No, there's different things there. Okay, Fanny's going to fear
everybody.
And Fanny, he was a bit of a distant figure. At first he was intimidating. He didn't know how to. Some people don't know how to seem kind even when they are kind, especially maybe they don't know how to do so with children that are
not their own,
or with or a girl versus a boy. You got to take also into account difference of time period. So, I think that there was something of that going into it as well. Plus, he wasn't always there. He had stuff to do with Parliament and things like that.
And some of these people who think that, you know, he should be at home, he did have to work.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
I mean, part of it would have been, of course, his lands and things like that, getting the rents. But he would have been actively involved. The other thing that...
Tom could have helped him with that if he'd done what he was supposed to be doing.
And maybe, if you want to argue anything, maybe what he needed to do is push Tom into doing more things.
Oh, I think so.
But one of the things that... so you get that. But they mentioned... I've seen commentators say, like, well, the girls made the decisions that they did because they didn't want to have to deal with living once more under the strictures of their father. Mentioned Maria jumping into the marriage for someone she didn't really love. And then Maria's later decisions... and Julia's later decisions were all because of the idea. It's like, okay, for one thing, it wasn't his fault that it got to... Okay, yes, he acknowledges that he shouldn't have let Mrs. Norris have as free of a hand. But he also should have been able to expect the women in the house to maybe pull their weight a little bit in helping raise the children. Like, that's not normally at that period of time would have been considered, like, the man's area. He also did, like, Mom said, he had work he had to do. Like, he wasn't there all the time. He was in Parliament, or he was in Antigua, or he was wherever he was. The people who were in the home, the women in the home, should have been helping him a little bit and not spoiling the kids. No. So to put that on him would be a bit unfair. And, like, he did try to give Maria a way out once he noticed that there was no affection there. He asked her, actually, I think he asked her twice. Some people say, oh, he should have pushed her a lot more. You know, really been like, really said, no, I'm serious. Like, what else? If she keeps telling him no, what is she supposed to do? Like, say, you can't marry him.
Well, he could have, but
like,
there was no reason
There
to.
was no reason to. Yes, you can argue that. And he even blames himself, like, well, maybe if I had not, if been so keen on the match because of that was a good match and everything like that, maybe I should have pursued it more, but I wanted it to be okay. And she said it was okay, so.
Yeah, it's interesting to see Mrs. Norris's imprint on them, because the ones that were her favorites, Tom, Maria, and lesser extent Julia, those were the ones who were very spoiled. I mean, Tom nearly ruined his life. Maria was a disaster. I think she was affected the worst.
Yes, she was.
And then Julia, she did something rash, but I think she was going to be happy. I think that she was okay. She also had more, in my mind, more compassion for Fanny, more of a sisterly kind of affection even for her, and than Maria ever did. I always felt like Maria just kind of looked down on everybody.
Well, and that had a lot to do with how much Mrs. Norris had ability to influence her, because
that's my point.
Yeah, because Tom at least would go off to school at one point, so his sole influence would not have been, or his main, and also his father would have been at a certain point more involved than anyone else after at the home, but Mrs. Norris would have essentially been the main female influence in Maria and Julia's life, other than their governess, and I mean their mom's there, but their mom's
a child.
She's a sweet lady.
She is,
but she's not an adult.
Even Fanny, she's like, I got to get back to help Mrs. Lady Bertram. Lady Bertram needs me.
Yes.
It's very important.
Everyone cares for Lady Bertram, but Lady Bertram's not expected to raise anybody. Everybody knows that that's the case. So Mrs. Norris, who is the thing is, she actually was neat. Like, she could have truly been useful, like she always wants to feel like she is. But she spoiled things by spoiling Maria and the other two. So when you have Sir Thomas being blamed for the fact that the girls make these rash decisions, or to a certain extent Tom. Now, Tom, that could have even just been people he met at college. This was not an unusual phenomenon for young heirs to sow their wild oats. It wasn't like something that necessarily you can just put at Sir Thomas's door. Although, of course, there could have been, I'm sure, things that he could have done, although he tried to.
I'm a firm believer that after a certain age, you make your own decisions and you grow up. So,
and he did try to, even when he was older, try to make him feel embarrassed for the decisions that he made. And he decided he just didn't want to do. He preferred doing what he wanted to do. But the girl's like, okay, so he'll try to guide them along the right path, but what else can he do? The girls are not going to, if you're gonna have people going to want to do what they want to do, and if they choose to make a decision because they know that you're going to try to push them back on where they're supposed to be, they're going to make that decision. Like, their choice was purely a selfish one. It had nothing to do with like, oh, it was so oppressive under their father. No, their father actually wanted them to live like respectable people. They wanted to live wilder lives. And
I think we'd have to break it in a minute. It looks like you're going to have to.
Yeah.
So that you can do the half thing.
Yeah. Hold on one sec. I just want to finish some thoughts on Sir Thomas. But I think to look at Sir Thomas and put the way his daughters reacted purely on him, although he did accept a level of that, like I said, because he said, if I've depended too much on Mrs. Norris. I don't know how else he could have handled it with his wife being the way she was and him not being able to be there all the time. I don't know, because you're essentially almost a single parent then.
Yeah. Maybe Mrs. Grant, but
Mrs. Grant wasn't there yet. By the time Mrs. Grant was there, the girls were basically gone. The damage has been done by the time Mrs. Grant comes to the Crawfords. Julia and Maria particularly, they're set. They're ruined.
I think Julia still had some potential.
Yeah, that was a bit dramatic. But Maria the personality damage has been done.
Well, sure, her personality is also a lot more like her aunt's.
Yes, I agree with you there. I agree with you there. Because part of the decision that she made at the end was that she didn't want someone else to have something that she couldn't have.
Mm-hmm.
So, or to see some, there was that level of, like we were talking about for Mrs. Price and for Mrs. Norris. They don't want you to be happy because, you're seen as being lesser than, or in the case of Maria, not only are you seen as being lesser than, but that's also someone that she wanted.
Even a poor Taylor's entitled to some happiness.
But another thing I've seen people point at, it's right around the...
Are you going to get started on another thing? Because we're
This is still Sir Thomas.
Okay.
For Sir Thomas, this is about the time he comes back. It's for the dance that's being set for her, for Fanny. So,
which is something she never would have gotten in her house. Mrs. Price was probably, Mrs. Norris was probably feeling about.
Oh, she 100% was. She was trying to convince herself and convince everyone else that the dance was for the others. And after she wasn't able to convince them to wait till Julia and Maria came home, she didn't want it to be for Fanny. And for Fanny to be the lady of the night. Not lady of the night, that sounds bad. The lady of the eve, that's...
Star attraction.
Yes. So there is a point where there has been the dance, and it's a point where Sir Thomas is looking at them and being like, okay, Fanny is getting a bit tired. And also, he's noticed the attraction of Mr. Crawford as well. So, I'm talking about her walking. Okay, good. Talking about here, I'm at the dance where I wanted to be. So, here we go. Shortly afterward, Sir Thomas was again interfering a little with her inclination by advising her to go immediately to bed. Advise was his word, but it was the advice of absolute power, and she had only to rise, and with Mr. Crawford's very cordial adieus, pass quietly away, stopping at the entrance door, like the lady of Braxholm Hall, one moment and no more, to view the happy scene, and take a last look at the 5 or 6 determined couple who were still hard at work, and then, creeping slowly up the principal staircase, pursued by the ceaseless country dance, feverish with hopes and fears, soups and negus, sore-footed and fatigued, restless and agitated, yet feeling, in spite of everything, that a ball was indeed delightful. Mm-hmm. So the thing that I've heard people point to as another kind of like a nitpick against Sir Thomas is this: advise was his word, but it was the advice of absolute power.
So father has absolute power over their kids.
And it's just like, okay, so I feel like maybe it's just a different idea of this is his home, first of all.
And she's
a dependent in his home. He's looking to her welfare for one thing, because she does tire easily.
And she had been sick.
He also, there would have been a question about whether or not that, in thus sending her away, Sir Thomas perhaps might not be thinking merely of her health. It might occur to him that Mr. Crawford had been sitting by her long enough, or he might mean to recommend her as a wife by showing her persuadableness. But all of those things there, okay, you could sit there and look at the wording of, it was the advice of absolute power, and you can read all the most negative things into that as you want, which I just think was a fun way of wording that to myself. I think that some people just read too much into it.
I think people are looking for that type of stuff.
I think maybe because I come from a background where, maybe I think the level of discipline, we see how poor discipline affects the other kids who, when they don't get the discipline, and then discipline is being reasserted by the father coming back home, they are doing everything they can to not live a disciplined life. And the ones who don't live a disciplined life are the ones who end up in the worst situation. The ones who live in a more disciplined way are doing the better. They're doing better. So it's, I just don't. And the motives that are presented by him, for him in this section, thinking of her health, Mr. Crawford might have been sitting by her long enough, and might be showing her as being persuadable and good choice for a wife. All three of those things, her health, that's important.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's not appropriate for her to be sitting by a young man that long.
It's the same one.
The same one when they're not together. And then if he thinks that he might be interested, hey, look, she might be a good option as a wife. So all three of those things are things that are him thinking not as just power, but thinking actually of trying to do something good for Fanny. And we can continue more on Sir Thomas with some other things that happen with Fanny later. I know Mom probably wants another cup of tea. I think the mail's arrived, so we will be back.
In a flash. You won't know we're gone.
Okay, we are back. So I don't know how much more we really have to say about Sir Thomas. Sir Thomas is a bit of a, like Edmund, I feel a bit protective of that character because I feel like, almost even more than Edmund, to be quite honest with you, I feel like he gets misjudged. And I think it has more to do with the difference between cultures than anything else. I think perhaps people see his decision to send Fanny away as cruel as well, even though, like, once again, he didn't just... If he wouldn't have chosen to try to push Mr. Crawford on Fanny if he had been aware of his character, of Mr. Crawford's character, I mean. The biggest thing I would maybe judge Sir Thomas for is actually the same thing Sir Thomas judges himself for, which is his not being penetrating enough with his judgment of others.
Especially Mrs. Norris.
But
also Crawford.
Yes, and Edmund had the same fault. If anything else, I would argue that he and Edmund share the same fault in that they trusted perhaps too easily or put the best motivations too easily upon people.
Which is not a fault necessarily, except when it blinds you.
Yes, so...
Giving the person the benefit of the doubt is not a fault.
And I don't think that he realized quite how bad things... I mean, I think he thought things were rough at Fanny's house, but I don't think he realized how truly bad it was at Fanny's house. I don't think he would have sent her if he thought it would have affected her health.
No, he wouldn't have stood for that.
Even though
in some ways, and I don't think they would have contested it, he seems to have more parental concern and more parental rights over Fanny than... They wouldn't say, oh, you can't do that. She's our kid, because they don't care.
They don't care. No, he's doing everything of a father for her.
And she loves him for it.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
She absolutely loves him.
And she's very, she loves that family.
She does.
And she's so much happier, later on. But once her worth is seen and everything, she's allowed to explore that love even more and to feel loved by them as well. Sir Thomas wasn't as present as he could have been. He maybe felt distance in a way that someone who is more of a reserved personality. Now, there is some implication that he became more open or even more affectionate upon coming home from Antigua. Yeah. There was concern that he might not make it home. And he became very fond of the idea of home and family and seemed to become even more attentive. So, I don't know how much that had influence on that. But
we also saw how important Fanny was to his wife.
Yes.
And how much she took care of him.
But he's naturally a more reserved person. And also a person of high morals, which comes out with Edmund as well. Where when Mary brings up the idea... And this, I think Henry might have as well, the idea of holding one living, so one parish, while having another one, and they're not living in that parish, doing what quite a few clergymen would do, which is they would hire a curate, and the curate would do the work, and they would take in most of the money, and then pay the curate whatever small amount. Edmund had gained from his father the strong belief that if you were... your job as the minister was to be there with your people, not just to be there on overseeing and maybe just being there for a sermon once in a while or once a week or whatever. You were to be involved, and he
How can you serve a parish that you don't know?
Because when Edmund said that, Mary just sort of looked at him, and then Sir Thomas backed him up. Like, if you're going to do it, you're going to do it right. And you see that idea of wanting to do what is right. And again, you could argue the stuff that we had mentioned before about, well, the plantation in Antigua, what this meant for slavery, which had, I think, only fairly recently been, like, fully repealed in England, if I remember correctly from what I had read. And anything that you would have had would have been still.
And nobody reading now would say that that was a good thing to have that. Like I said, my peeve is that it happened, okay? You got to read about it because that's part of the story. You don't have to like it, but it's part of the story. And it's the way the life was run at that time.
And it wasn't the emphasis of the story itself was focused on. He would not necessarily have realized that what he was doing, especially if this was a period of time where that was somewhat normalized, where it wasn't being emphasized. This is, something you shouldn't be. It sounds bad that you have to say that this is something you shouldn't be doing, but
again, it was the time period.
Which doesn't obviously excuse.
No one is claiming that should excuse it. What I'm saying is that you're reading the story in this time period. If you're going to read a story in this time period, you have to do the time period accurately. And to be accurate, that is part of the time period.
Right. And it doesn't mean that he should be seen as a worse person as any of the other number of his peers, especially when you compare him to Admiral Crawford, who was such a horrible influence on his nephew, which really created this horrible person. And
talk about people not valuing other people as people with dignity. He just thought of women, especially, as conquests.
Yes.
And
well, to the point where even Mary, definitely took her aunt's side against the uncle who constantly, cheated on her and made his wife miserable. So that leads us on to the Crawfords, actually, because Sir Thomas, I have a feeling that unless you're someone who values a certain level of strictness, that parameters, or I like Sir Thomas. I've always liked Sir Thomas.
I like Sir Thomas. He's human. He makes mistakes,
and
he's like every other person who's trying to be a good person.
And he also is he's also, sorry, someone off screen.
Put it on the table there, Davina. Thank you.
He's also takes a look after everything blows up in their face. He doesn't go and look for someone else to blame. I'm going to compare him again to Mr. Bennet. Both of them have similar situations where family life blows up in their faces. They both similarly have to go to town for the sake of a family member. And the circumstance if you look at Mr. Bennet in Pride and Prejudice, he tells Lizzie, that he blames himself, this, that, and the other, you try to warn me, etc. But, the feeling will soon pass. And as soon as Lydia does get married, you start seeing the feeling pass. He's back to his kind of like laughing almost at the situation, even though not completely laughing at the situation. He's still not, you can see it's not going to take too long for him to really get back to his normal. Whereas with Sir Thomas, I think he takes more blame on himself than he really even deserves to have on himself. Because he did try to curtail some things. He did see warning signs and try to do something about them, even if he didn't pick up on all of them. Whereas Mr. Bennet, even when he was warned directly about them, just sort of like, oh, no, it's not an issue. Not an issue. And Mr. Bennet, he knew the feeling would pass of being responsible, soon enough. Whereas Sir Thomas is just like, this is an awful thing to have happened. this is, what, and he sits there like, what could I have done differently? How do we need to behave differently as a family? And then he sees and looks at the people around him and starts to really even more appreciate the value of the people, even though he was already appreciating Fanny and Edmund both. And the pain his family feels, he doesn't feel just for himself. It's weirdly enough, like, I don't always get the feeling off of Mr. Bennet, for example, that he's feeling the shame of each of the different, feeling what his other family members are feeling, if that makes sense. It's not about them necessarily. Whereas you have a point where Sir Thomas is hurting as much for, like, all of his kids are causing him pain at a certain point for different reasons. One's very ill. You've got the two things going on with the girls for things that they have done. And then Edmund is causing him pain because he can tell Edmund's in pain.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a parent thing.
And that is something that I can't see coming from Mr. Bennet. You don't hear him. I can't think of a point where I would go, oh, Mr. Bennet's hurting because Lizzie's hurting. Or anything like, no, Sir Thomas is hurting because Edmund is in pain.
And you can even see, even with Mrs. Bertram, they make a point to say, first of all, they make a point to say that both Tom, the son, and Mrs. Bertram are suffering, but they don't help each other out. It's not until Fanny comes and they can help them to do that. But Mrs. Bertram is not just suffering for herself. She's suffering because Tom is sick.
And so she doesn't know what to do about it.
She doesn't know what to do about it. She doesn't know how to deal with it. When Fanny comes and with Susan, they're able to,
And I give Tom a pass because Tom's still very weak. Tom almost didn't make it.
Yeah. And he to me was the kind of surprise at the end because of the way his life ended up. I think he has a chance now to be a decent human being.
Well, Tom's situation was some of the more typical thing that happened to young men who had too much money too soon, didn't necessarily have the same employment. And so they got in with other young men in university. It wasn't an uncommon phenomenon, but he wasn't completely ruined because he got stopped short by his own behaviors causing him to be in this situation. And he was able to then really get a wake-up call. And that's what he needed. But I think that Mrs. Norris affected Maria so badly and really spoiled her to the point that there was no going back for Maria. Maria was ruined to, even more than Tom, Maria was ruined to her core because she didn't have any other influences really than Mrs. Norris.
And after a while, anybody like Mrs. Grant or whoever, as she got older, she already had the tenterhooks in, and it would be too difficult to pay attention to somebody who wanted to put some kind of brakes on her.
Well, and that's what happened when Sir Thomas tried to put brakes on. When Sir Thomas tried to put brakes on, then you had the reaction of, oh no, someone's going to try to help me regulate my bad behavior. Can't have that. Must make rash decisions. Which that's a decision that you make.
They don't think it's rash, though. They think
I want to do what I want to do because no one can tell me what to do. And I don't have sympathy for that.
I think Sir Thomas should have cut off whatever allowance she had.
Well, the thing is, she was getting married.
I know that, but when she started being willful.
But he didn't notice it until it was too late because he trusted Mrs. Norris too much. He thought that she maybe spoiled the girls a bit, but he thought that he didn't realize how deep the damage was.
Well, it was spoiled as you think of rotten food, as opposed to spoiling where the little girl might be a little petulant or a little bit.
Right.
And you can kind of turn that around later on in life. This was true spoiling the whole thing
to the core.
To the core, where if you dump that into an apple barrel, that core, it would ruin everything.
Yeah, so I don't think because it wasn't his area to really be involved with the girls' education the same amount, I don't think he realized how deep the damage was done by Mrs. Norris. So when he thought what he was doing was simply a corrective action, he didn't realize that the girls had already gone too far to the point where any corrective action was looked at with resentment and caused a a bit of a reactive push, where Maria would rather choose something that gave her a level of independence, since she couldn't have Crawford anyway.
Right.
She was going to go into marriage she didn't want, so she can have the independence that she wanted. Because
Well, looking back on that now, you wonder if how much fidelity was going to be in there. If it wasn't Crawford, would it be somebody else?
no, I agree. I think it would have always possibly been someone else, because
And someone else, and someone else.
exactly.
Because it was never going to be what she wanted exactly. Be the next best thing. For Maria, in some ways, is a lot like Mrs. Norris. The grass is always greener somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she resented Fanny. I don't think Julia did as much.
It said as much
Yeah.
that she did. That part of her her decision making, that was in the back of her head.
I mean, you might get the impression, and you're probably right, that I give Julia a little more of a slide. I like Julia more. She's more of a decent person.
Well, also Julia, when she was interested in Crawford, she wasn't engaged.
Mm-hmm. And she wasn't the same kind of manipulative as Maria.
No, there was a bit of competitiveness between the girls.
Well, that's normal.
But and she did have a little bit of a pouty fit, for lack of a better term, when she realized that Crawford preferred her sister over her.
And that again is normal.
But after that point, she decided that, okay, I'm not doing this again. And she got over him.
Well, she didn't want to be made a fool of again.
Yeah, and so when she saw...
Because he was playing them both.
Yeah, when she saw that he was coming around in London, she separated herself from that situation. So, no, Julia...
I have a lot more respect for Julia.
Especially since it's considered the fact that Julia did it without having the same natural fortitude of someone like a Fanny, who also had Edmund's support, like really deep tutoring. Julia didn't necessarily have Edmund's deep tutoring.
Well, the point is that Edmund was pushing Crawford on.
Oh, absolutely.
Fanny.
But
So
I mean, like,
that's
what I mean by the deep tutoring was helping her build up the moral.
They had the discussions.
Yeah,
and things.
Edmund and Fanny, from the time that Fanny arrived there, were having these really deep moral discussions, thoughtful discussions that he wasn't necessarily having with his sisters, and because they weren't interested. But so when Julia makes a decision that she's going to separate herself from this situation, when she didn't necessarily have that kind of influence from Mrs. Norris or her mother, who, like we said, is sweet but not really, a parent.
Yeah. Not really present.
Yes. And her father was not going to be an influence in the same way as Mrs. Norris was. So for her to make a decision that I'm not doing this again, and I'm separating myself from that situation, and she didn't even have Edmund's influence really to the same extent, that I give her credit for that.
Well, there's a reason I like her more than the other. I mean, she's not going to be a favorite of mine, but she's not one that I look at her and I go, ooh.
And I mean, they do point to the fact that this decision was made perhaps in haste because she didn't want to have to go.
But that was that was the commentary,
yeah.
Right? I mean,
that might have been partial. That might have been partially narrator voice, but it was like the way it was said was something to the effect of a decision made in haste might not turn out as bad as because Julia did have some concern about what it would be like. And, it probably would have been a very tight...
But I think that, and we've talked about this, the thing is that we know from the beginning that Crawford just plays with women.
Yeah.
Okay? And I don't think he's going to be faithful to Maria any more than he was faithful to Fanny. And whereas with this guy who...
They actually already said that he's not. He left already.
Who?
Crawford.
Okay. Julia... This guy has loved her forever.
Well, yeah, as soon as he met her, he was attracted to her.
And I think she has a chance to be happy if she does. I think she is.
Well, it's even implied.
I think she's inclined to let it be something where she's happy.
Yeah, and he's inclined to let himself be influenced by her father. There's some maturing that can be done.
Smoothing over the waters between them. So I think they'll be fine.
And she also came back home. She wanted to be reintegrated. I think, yes, she made a rash decision.
Well, she was young.
But she made a rash decision to get married. She didn't make the rash decision
to run off with somebody.
Yeah, she went to Gretna Green. and you could argue like, well, you probably should have made, yes, but she, considering the decision that her sister and Crawford made, she might not have been able to find anyone else. It was going to be very difficult because it's one of those things.
It's like the thing that it ruined Mary and Edmund's chances, for which I was profoundly grateful because.
But I felt I actually resented it for each of their cases because they should have been allowed to make the decision themselves. That should not have been stolen from them.
I agree, but I don't know if Edmund would have been capable of it.
I think he needed to see that.
Yeah, I think he needed to see how she would react, and her reactions to how her brother acted was an eye opener.
But I do think that Crawford did his sister a disservice and did his friend a disservice because they should have been allowed.
No, I agree, but
to not be forced separation.
I agree, but
I mean, in the end, her behavior made Edmund.
It would never have come to pass until maybe they got married, and that would have been too late. And so I was glad that happened, but it would have been better if they came to it on their own
because
he would come to the decision and then he would back off.
Yeah. And Fanny was waiting forever for the other shoe to drop.
This is the reason I kept calling him an idiot.
Yeah. And I mean, I felt for Edmund. This is where a lot of people think that Fanny deserves better than Edmund. First of all, that's the person that Fanny wanted. So Fanny...
Well, that doesn't mean anything.
No, it doesn't. But Fanny, they liked each other and they were they cared about each other. It wasn't like there was a toxic relationship there or anything like that. So it's the same argument people make about Edward and Eleanor, that Eleanor deserved better than him. Well, first of all, no, like there is things going on there that, again, if you look at it through a modern lens, perhaps there's going to be an issue. I think people overhype Mr. Darcy, to be quite honest with you.
I don't like Mr. Darcy. I think that Mr. Darcy and Lizzie are going to be miserable. I do.
I think they'll be okay.
I think they're going to be sparring.
They're always going to be. They're going to be.
I don't think they can have a relationship together without doing that.
The thing is, they're both willing to work on themselves.
Yes, they are. And I think they enjoy.
They enjoy the intellectual.
I think they enjoy the back and forth. I don't think they'd be happy with someone who is kind of milquetoasty.
No, and neither of them are the type who would denigrate each other in front of the children.
No. And I don't think they're inclined to denigrate themselves now that they know where they stand.
They can see themselves clearly now, and they can see, oh, this is where my fault caused this issue, and this is where my fault. So they're able to, they are willing to work on themselves.
Which doesn't mean they're not going to argue.
No, and it's just going to be that they're going to have a bit more of an exciting relationship. And some people, that's just the way they work. Mm-hmm. But I'm not necessarily, I think, this is going to maybe be a bit... I don't know how a lot of people feel about this, but I think some people's elevated Mr. Darcy isn't so much about the text. It's about the BBC miniseries from when...
Is that Colin Firth?
When Colin Firth came out of the water in that wet shirt. That's like the scene everyone always talks about. I'm like...
I haven't seen it.
Well, that's... People look at Colin Firth and they look at the one with the girl from Pirates of the Caribbean.
Keira Knightley.
Now, I don't think the guy who plays Darcy in that is very attractive at all, but people like him.
I haven't seen him.
He has basically the greasy hair. Really? I think it looks greasy. I don't think that he's very attractive.
I have one character that I like that I've seen on TV of all of them, and that is what's his name? He plays Colonel Brandon. He plays
Snape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He always plays a bad guy.
Oh, but not in Galaxy Quest. He doesn't play bad guy in Galaxy
Quest. Oh, that's right. He played
the guy,
he played the Worf character.
Spock character.
Spock character.
The one who was like, by the moon, blah, 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 I will avenge you.
But what is his name? Brandon.
I had it and I lost it because he was also...
But he's my favorite of screen adaptation people. I absolutely love him.
Unfortunately, that's going to be lesser of the versions of Sense and Sensibility because...
I don't care. I like him.
The guy who plays him in the other version's not bad.
No, he's not him. He's not him.
Do you know he was a stage actor up until...
Who him?
The guy who played Colonel Brandon in the version you liked. Mm-hmm. He was a stage actor up until he was in that Bruce Willis movie they always call the Christmas movie.
Die Hard.
Die Hard. That was his first movie. He was the bad guy in Die Hard.
Of course he was.
And yeah, apparently that was like his first movie that was.
To me, he had all kinds of nuance, and I absolutely loved him. I thought his portrayal was the best, and he made me love the character of Brandon. And I haven't seen it all the way through. I just have seen clips, and I will admit that I fell in love with Grant Brandon when we were reading the book.
Well, Brandon's is a great character. And when we're done with all the books, we'll probably do a rating video of rakes and heroes and heroines and see where we all land on them. But yeah, so how do we get to
I said something. I had to talk about
I know what it was. I think that a lot of times it was my thing with Edmund and Edward. So a lot of times I think people like the Darcys and the Lizzies and these certain other characters. I can get why people like Henry Tilney.
Who?
Henry Tilney, Catherine's.
Oh yeah.
But the one who
The brother?
Yeah, the one who he and his sister
Right.
were reading Anne Radcliffe together. Not Anne Radcliffe.
And he went to the end of the
not
book.
Anne Radcliffe. Anne Radcliffe is a more modern author.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
The Mystery of Rodolfo. I don't know why I said
Anyway, he went to the end of the book.
Yes, she walked away for 5 seconds and he kept reading. The jerk.
And then he told her about it.
She was so mad at him. But that was a typical sibling type thing.
It was a nice. I like that book.
That was
a good start.
Yes, it was a good way to start.
I need to reread that because I don't remember it very well. Except that I thought that the little girl who was the heroine, I forget her name, Catherine. I thought she was sweet.
She's a little cutie.
Mm-hmm.
So naive. Mm-hmm. But I think that
and the people who were taking care of her weren't the best. They were nice.
Very nice. But when I think people, I wonder how much people base their liking off of Darcy. Now, I do think there are people who base their liking off of Darcy off of the text. But I do think there is a portion of the fandom that bases their liking off of Darcy off of the adaptations, which I'm not sure is the most accurate. Because I think also if you look at the text, all these characters are complex. Because what's going into Edmund when you're dealing with him is... Now, for him, perhaps you can argue there's a less complex thing going on here because he falls in love with a girl who he thinks is really lovely. He sees what he thinks is...
He sees what he wants to see.
Well, he sees good in her, and he's blinded. Now, part of it is that there are points where she will show a flash of something.
Well, so will her brother.
And that's why he's able to be... Although he's actively trying to deceive when he does it, when she does it, a lot of times it is just something she's doing. Like when she interferes when Mrs. Norris says something really cruel to Fanny at a gathering, and Mary looks at her in shock and then tries to distract Fanny and start talking to her about her brother and things like that, about William.
Yeah.
And it's very early on, and...
That's just common kindness.
It is, but because... they even make a point that she wasn't thinking really that much about. Now, you could argue that was some of Austen's humor. She wasn't thinking that much about Edmund, but I don't think she was thinking. I think what she was thinking about, having been independent herself in a household, because, she had to live on essentially, she had to live off of whatever family members able to take her in. Now, there's not the lack of money, but still... to watch someone just be kind of abused. I know one commentary said that, she was offended more by the idea of this not being proper behavior than anything else. I was like, no, she does seem to actually value Fanny for Fanny. Even though she doesn't fully...
As far as she's able to, she is.
Yeah. So I think that sometimes what would happen is Edmund would see that flash of something and be like, there's something good in here.
Well, there's no doubt that there is, but the point is it worth the effort to get it out?
And that's where you have to deal with...
she keeps burying it.
And that's a lack of maturity.
Oh, it's more than a lack of maturity. It's a character flaw.
Yeah.
I mean, she's 21 years old.
No, I mean him.
Oh, him.
His lack of... I'm not talking lack of maturity on her part. I'm talking about lack of maturity insofar as, he had his head turned. And there's a lack of maturity to maybe delve in there a bit deeper and see, yes, you like her, but maybe that's not enough there. And I I think that and also he shares some of his father. It's the same thing that blinded his father to Mrs. Norris. That kind of like lack of penetration that both of them have. They share both the same high values, but they both share that same lack of penetration or seeing better than what is actually there.
Be able to see things the way they are.
And I think they're seeing things the way they are. And he's able to acknowledge to a certain extent, but he's like, but look, there's something there. And also the problem is poor Fanny. Fanny, she does what some of us women will do sometimes, especially at that age. We will hide this thing because we don't want to show too much. But then we're like, well, why don't you see that I like you? Why don't you read my mind?
Because they're stupid.
And so it's like she's actively hiding from people that she likes Edmund in that way. But her feelings are still getting hurt that Edmund is not seeing her in that way. Well, it's like...
I see that a little bit, but I think that a little bit more perceptiveness, you can't... When someone does... I guess... Well, I can't say that because I've been blind to people, but it's just...
Especially if you've been raised thinking them as, essentially as a sibling. Even though you're not your sibling, you're your cousin. If you've never even seen them as a potential romantic interest, it just doesn't enter your head. Sometimes you need something to kick you in the face. Mm. And if the person themselves is not willing to kick you in the face, then it's going to take something big to reveal that to you. Because why would you suddenly look at this person who's always been there, you've always been close, but you've never had a romantic anything with them? Something has to happen to change the status quo. Mm-hmm. So I think that because Fanny's the personality she is, and doesn't feel like she necessarily has the right to, let Edmund know of her affection, mm-hmm. Edmund was going to be blind to until something happened.
I don't know if I completely agree with that. I do in theory, but I'm not sure I completely agree with that.
Because
he's got to, think about the protectiveness and all that kind of stuff, and the growing discontent with Mary that he keeps having to. I mean, he's got to question why I have to keep making excuses for her, and she. Well,
I think he does talk through that.
Yeah, but he never does anything about it.
I mean, and that's true, and that is something that. But I guess because he is stuck on Mary so long, people just don't think that he's worthy of Fanny. But I just kind of feel like no, haven't any of you ever been stuck on somebody?
No, I don't agree with that.
I think that there's all been points where people have maybe liked someone that really wasn't best for them, especially if that person really showed that they liked you back in return. And there was yes, there's this barrier between you guys, but you both like each other. That's what makes it harder, is that just because you like each other doesn't mean you're best for each other.
Right.
And that's, if it had been just even an unrequited love, that might have been easier, but it wasn't unrequited. So that makes it even harder. And it takes a certain level of maturity to register that we like each other, but we're not good for each other. Because it's a lot easier, even though it's still hard, to be like, but I really like you, and you don't like me, but you should like me. The unrequited that Fanny was having for a long time.
Right.
That's hard, but when you have both people liking each other, it's like you feel like, well, love can overcome.
Not always, and I'm going to have to say, I'm getting tired.
Okay.
And it's getting toward 2:00, and I've got to eat lunch.
Okay, so
we could go on, especially her. She'll go on forever.
Yeah.
I almost could say that we're not really quite finished.
Yeah, because I mean, now of course we will have a further conversation when it comes. I know we've barely touched on Crawford, but I think we've been pretty clear about how we think of Crawford.
Crawford is the main thing that I just, through the whole book, he was next in line for Mrs.
Norris, yeah.
Because
occasionally Mr. Crawford would do something.
Ty would keep saying, "Oh, he's doing this." I'm like, I don't care.
Now, it's partially because I knew what was coming up. A lot of times when I do that, I will have conversations with Mom like I don't know what's coming next. And funny thing is, I don't feel like I'm being necessarily deceptive about it, because I try to get into...
I know what you're doing.
I try to get into the mindset of the character at that time period.
I know what she's doing. So it's not a deception.
Because for me, I want to absorb it almost to the same extent she is. So, and like you said, you know what I'm doing. So I want to say, okay, we're experiencing these characters together. Now let's both theorize, and I do everything I can not to really. I try to think about what I know is coming in the future.
I keep saying that. Okay, I said I don't care. I don't care what sparks he's showing because he's not a nice person. He's when you start out with the premise of I'm going to add her to my belt and then dump her. I'm sorry. There's nothing he can do. Nothing to that's reprehensible. No. I just no. I knew I just had a gut feeling that he was not going to have any. The only reason he kept going as far as he did, and I still believe this, despite what you say, is because she said no. And the minute she says yes or gives it, then it was going to slowly degrade back into whatever because there wasn't that little whatever. I have absolutely no positives to say about him. I just don't, except that he loves his sister, and even that wasn't enough. Even that wasn't enough to keep him from messing her up.
Yeah, because I mean,
his so-called best friend and his sister. I mean, messing everybody up. No, I'm sorry, I just don't like him at all. And in some ways, he's worse than Mrs. Norris, who's kind of out front, so to speak.
Well, Mrs. Norris was also willing to give up a really good living position to go off with Maria. That is actually true devotion, to give Mrs. Norris that much. You know,
well, she was devastated by everything. She didn't try to shift the blame to anybody else.
Well, she did try to shift it to Fanny for not taking Mr. Crawford.
Yeah, but that's the only part. She said she brokered the thing. She did this. She did that. She made it possible for Maria. It's all there. So I don't like her, but at least she took more responsibility than some of the others, and she went off into oblivion with Maria.
Oh yeah, no, she didn't try to blame the marriage on like the marriage things and everything. Because that was that thing that she always like was really proud of was setting up this marriage.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, not the other stuff. No, that's I'm not talking about that's water under the bridge. I'm talking about all the stuff that went wrong with Maria, that she could see that was her hands that did that, and she accepted that.
And there was true affection for
Maria.
That Maria didn't share towards her.
I don't think Maria's capable. Because I think Mrs. Norris did such a good job at making her the way she was that she just couldn't care about anybody but herself.
Because
and Maria, in retrospect, comes out being the worst of anybody. In terms of having, I don't have any modicum of any.
No, I can't even point. I can't even point to anything for her. No, I can like argue a little bit, like Mr. Crawford got Fanny a little bit of a break from her home a little bit,
or he did, pay attention to Susan as well and all that kind of stuff without any, of course she's only 14 or whatever, but still, and Mrs. Norris did have a very strong attachment to Maria and was willing to back that up
to the point where she gave up a very good living situation for herself to go off in obscurity with someone who really doesn't like her.
Yeah, and so that, whereas Maria is just all about Maria, and I can't stand her.
There's nothing I can say positive about Maria.
So I think in the overall scope of everything, she's probably the worst character in the book.
Which is actually, I hadn't really thought to it to that depth, but I absolutely agree with you, because for every other character, you can at least point to one instance of, however misguided or tainted even slightly by something negative, there was something that's small that was positive, that had something positive about it, had a glimmering of, I want to do something good, or it's
for somebody else.
Yeah, something that's not just self-focused. Everything Maria did
was for Maria.
Because Crawford even was concerned about how pale and stuff Fanny was looking.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He had moments.
He had moments which I don't remember Maria ever noticing anything about anyone else.
Not unless it
directly affected her.
Yeah.
So
she played her husband, and not yet husband, but played him, and and sidled up to Crawford, and
No, there was nothing. No
social redeeming value to her. That sounds terrible, but I don't mean that she shouldn't exist or anything. It's just
well, better off.
Better off. Was it? Oh, better.
Fanny actually says something effective. She'd be better, essentially obliterated. But it's funny because
that was because of the scandal.
Yes, that's because of the scandal,
not because of the person.
Because we had all laughed at
the dramatics.
We had laughed. When I remember reading because I'd forgotten that Fanny had something like that, said something like that, but when Mr. Collins says that in a letter to Mr. Bennet, you're like, whoa, that's an awful thing to say. And then when Fanny thinks it, you go and you think on the culture. Well, yeah, actually, according to that culture, this is actually like, for her, it would almost be better if she is.
Better be died than live.
Because everything is lost. And that was a cultural.
Well, you lose your possibility of getting married. You get,
Yes, it was perhaps very blunt to say that to someone the way Mr. Collins did, but it wasn't like Mr. Collins was uniquely cruel in having this thought.
I don't think it was mean, cruel on purpose either.
No, well, he was a bit
pompous.
And Mary said Mary Bennet said much of the same thing as Mr. Collins, actually. So, I mean, you have Mary Bennet, you have Mr. Collins, and Fanny Price all having a similar thought for a similar situation. And that was just steeped into culture. How they handled it, like actually outright saying it the way that Mary Bennet and Mr. Collins did, versus Fanny, who just is thinking in her head, but not actually like means she wants, her cousin be obliterated off the face of the earth.
I are hungry.
Yes, sorry. So, I do think that, what we were saying was to close this off. We did not get to cover Crawford perhaps in the amount that we wanted to, but I don't think there's a whole lot more to say about him. We're going to be touching, like we had said, we'll do, at the end of our Austen journey, we'll probably do a video talking about the different rakes, the different heroes, the different heroines, and the different antagonists / villains that are not rakes. And then
story arcs
and things like that. So everyone will get
touched.
Yeah, they'll get touched, but they'll be grouped, and we'll do some personal rating systems. And what I would like to do is, when we know going into it at the time what topic we'll be hitting, I want us to make our list separately and then see where we land.
Well, we have to discuss who we think is in each group.
Right, we'd have to do that first. And then we'll go, okay, now don't tell each other how we'll rate. And then we discuss that during it. And then we would see if people move up and down the rating as we discuss, which would be a very fun video.
Well, what I'm going to need to do, because I'm reading this for the first time, so I get confused as to who's
right.
who.
Well, we would have.
So we have to talk about who these people are.
Yeah,
and I can write them down as I go, and then I can rank them.
Yeah,
but I will have to, because we're reading these, and then I'm reading other things, and it's just
So that'll be very fun. And at that point, what we'll probably end up doing is we'll make a video for each, so they would be spread through our channels.
Probably an Austen playlist.
Yeah, it would be. We would make sure that the person who gets rakes doesn't also get other villainous characters. We kind of split them up. The one who gets heroes doesn't also get heroines. So, kind of fair, maybe even do fathers, mothers, split those
groups.
The
auxiliary cast, supporting cast.
There's so much that can be going on. But yes, so just more to look forward to. It might even end up being a 2-part.
It's like 3 hours.
Video, so people don't have to sit. This is very rambly, but we warned you that this was a discussion more than anything else.
When we do a lot of our collaboratives, they do tend to be, unless they're tags or something.
And this kind of video is always a bit challenging because you're not sure how much background you need to get before you go into the conversation, because you're doing spoilers, but you're also not sure how much do I need to walk people through what we're talking about. But
you're waffling now.
Yeah. So we'll probably have this better handled by the time we get to Emma. We'll have an idea of what we'll have an idea of what we're doing.
Emma.
And just kind of, I think,
Can we just skip Emma and go to Persuasion?
No. I need you to meet Mr. Knightley.
I already met Mr. Knightley.
No, you haven't.
I did. I read about 2/3 of the book.
You don't remember Mr. Knightley.
Don't let Emma.
You gotta hang on for Mr. Knightley. I love Mr. Knightley.
Well, I've got Colonel Brandon. What do I need Mr. Knightley for?
Mr. Knightley and Colonel Brandon would like each other. So, we'll see y'all for our next Austen-y thing, which will be whenever we happen to finish Emma. So in another year or so.
Well, yeah, it depends on how fast we read it. And
Emma's not quite as thick as Mansfield Park,
and we only read it once a week.
So that's.
We have other things that we read. In fact, we're going to be picking up the Quadrille now.
Yes, but Quadrille will only be for the month of May while we're reading Rob Roy.
Yep.
And then we'll go back and start Emma.
Mm-hmm.
So yes. Anyway, gonna end.
May.
We'll be okay, Mom. You can do it.
I need my bulletproof vest and my asbestos.
We'll do it together.
We'll sink or swim together.
Anyway, thank you very much for... What?
We went to kindergarten together.
That was what? That was
That movie with James Cagney, Time of Your Life? No. I forget.
it was the one in the
bar.
Yeah, that's time. I'm pretty sure it's Time of Your Life.
Yeah, James Cagney and his sister.
That weird one that was done. It was just like really just people walking in and out of the bar.
Yeah.
And the comedian, but nobody laughs.
Yeah. My ear is hurting. My ears. Sorry, we gotta go.
Okay. Anyway, thank you for spending time with us. I know we're both getting a little bit tired and punchy, but hope you enjoyed some of that conversation.
God bless.
God bless. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Books keep coming home with me. Piles so tall, they're all I see. Turn a page and sail the sea. Reading always feels so free.